Hey guys, so for today's video, I'm going to talk about my top 5 most wowing film moments. So these are moments where, after all these years of film viewing, these are the moments where every time I watched a film, these are the top 5 that really took me by surprise, really wowed me, really kind of set the bar as to, how I view directing, how I view acting, how I view filmmaking in general. Um, so these are my top 5 most wowing film moments. Out of all my films I've ever watched, these are the 5 moments where I just really got blown off my feet, really impressed. Whoever was a part of these films or whoever made this possible through what I'm going to tell you in these top 5 really just took me by surprise and really almost changed me to be the person who I am today as far as film critiquing goes. At number 5, and this is actually a tied one because I couldn't decide which of these two films I wanted to use for this one. Seeing Forrest Gump and seeing The Lion King for the first time. Lion King was probably the first film I remember seeing in the theater, to be honest. I just remember being really wowed by it. It was a huge screen. I was really little. I was probably like 4 when this movie came out. Um, I just remember being really impressed by the music, the animation. At the time I didn't know how animation works, so I had no idea that these are like people's voices over these characters and everything like that. Um, so it was kind of the film that got me into film in a way. So really close to my heart. So that's one of my that made it to number 5, and tied with number 5 was my first time seeing Forrest Gump. Um, I remember my parents had. I was too young at the time to see it in the theater. I think we still have it, our old VHS tape of Forrest Gump. I remember my parents always popped it in a lot. And I think it wasn't until I was like about 9, 10, maybe even 11, where I popped that VHS tape in myself and viewed it myself. And I just remember being, because I remember seeing it in small segments and everything, but I remember seeing it for the first time all the way through. And I just remember being really, really wowed by what I saw. It just really showed that 2.5 hours can really mean a lot when it comes to film. I mean, you can cover so much material in that time, and Forrest Gump used that ability to its best. So it really, really wowed me, and it made it to my number 5 here on the list. And number 4, I remember when I saw The Shining for the first time, I was really blown away by the technical side of it. How it was shot, the music they used. For those who saw my top 5 scariest film moments, kind of like the moldy corpse woman in the bathtub, how creepy that was. Um, I just remember being woken up at around, I'd say like 9 in the morning on a weekend day. I think it was a Saturday. Um, and I don't think I had to go into work that day, and or at least later in the day, for that matter. And we had HBO and Stars, and all the channels in the hundreds at the time. And I remember being woken up and my parents, like you should watch the Shining film. We really, that you like Stephen King and all that other kind of stuff. So I was probably like 15 or 16 around the time this happened. Um, and I just remember being really blown away by the technical side of it. I took a film class, a film theory class in high school, and that's where I really started to realize the technical side of The Shining and just how brilliantly shot it was, how everything just kind of lines up. The scene where Jack's at the bar alone, he's talking to that fictional ghost person and working at the bar. All that's lined up perfectly. They all lead to Jack, or they all lead to the bartender, and really small things like that. I think really made a difference for me with that movie. And so, as far as technical side of the film goes, I was really blown away by it, and it's almost kind of it almost helped me form on how to form my opinion on how to make a movie. How to line things up, how to shoot things, how to angle things. Um, so that made it to number 4 on my list. And number 3, the last that I had the first time I saw Austin Powers 3 in Goldmember. Um, or Austin Powers and Goldmember, as most people like to call it. I just remember it was around New Year's Eve. My family rented this from Hollywood Video, which was open at the time at the town where I live in. And I just remember really laughing my head off at this movie. I just remember really being impressed by just how funny it was. Because, I saw the first two Austin Powers roughly around the time I saw this one. So I didn't see these until like my preteen, early teenage years. And I really like the first two Austin Powers films, but this film really blew me away for some reason. It really hit every note when it came to making a really funny comedy. And I just remember really laughing so hard. And this is one of the first films I remember viewing for the first time where my family would have to rewind scenes and rewatch them either because they were just so funny or because we were laughing so hard that we missed what was going on in the storyline. Really good time, really funny, and the film almost felt longer because we were rewinding so many scenes so many times. So that made it to number three on my list. At number two, the first time I experienced Heath Ledger's Joker performance in The Dark Knight. People, he died before the film was released. People were really expecting high expectations from the movie. I was a huge fan of Batman Begins and some of Christopher Nolan's other work going into this movie. And I just remember Heath Ledger really knocked it out of the park in this movie, specifically when we first see him in that room of all those criminals, and he's doing the pencil trick and everything else. Really, just as far as acting goes, I mean, this kind of set the bar as to what acting should look like. I didn't even see Heath Ledger while watching this movie. I saw the Joker in this movie. I mean, I really saw the character he was trying to portray, and it kind of set, like I said, just set the bar for me as to how good acting should be when it comes to these big Hollywood productions like this. So that made it to number two on my list. And at number one, and this shouldn't surprise a lot of people because this is my all-time favorite movie as far as 2013 goes. Um, Seeing Iron Man 1, the very first Iron Man for the first time. It was 2008. It was, we were borderline summertime. And we were close to finishing up at school around the time this movie came out at the high school I was going to. Or, we had a couple weeks left or something like that. And a good friend of mine and I saw this movie in the theater, and I just remember, like, we were walking out of the theater, and I was blown away then. But I remember sitting down in the car about to leave, and I was just like looking out at like the cars driving by in the parking lot, and I was just like, dude, I really can't believe what I just saw. I mean, I really just, it blew my mind. It really did. I mean, I just remember walking out of the theater saying, you know what, John Favreau gave me everything that I wanted with the movie. Everything from the characters, everything from the action scenes, everything from the storyline, everything from this impressive CGI. CGI that was put to good use too. It just really blew my mind as to how good a film can get. And John Favreau, I think, really knocked it out of the park with this movie. I just remember being really, really blown away. Like I had to give myself a few minutes before we starting up the car, just how impressive this film was. I remember calling up my dad, telling him that this is the best movie I ever saw, and he kind of didn't believe me at first, and then we, eventually owned the movie, and then that's how he realized just how good this film was. So that made it to number one on my list. That was my most impressed film moment I ever had during all my 23 years of film viewing. So I hope you guys like the list. What is your most wowing film moment? What was the moment during film viewing where you really got impressed, really set the bar as to what good acting was, what good directing was, what good storylines were, what good CGI was, good makeup, good practical effects? I mean, it could be anything. So list your favorite down below if you want, or list your top five like I did. Hopefully, it won't take up too much space though. Um, so that was my most wowing film moments. Hope you guys liked it, and hope to see you here for the next video.